Good morning and welcome to the true middle of the week for us, the fourth day, Thursday. I think psychologically it just helps to have Wednesday as the hump day for most people. But if we stop and think about it, some of us our week falls differently. Nevertheless, here we are on the fourth day. We are on Thursday, and as we are on the fourth day of the week, we're going to jump right in and look at our meditations in Hebrews. This is the faith chapter. We've actually broken this chapter into two parts. We've done just 20-something verses per week. Here we are. We have actually completed this in speaking and expositionally preaching through the 11th chapter of the book of Hebrews in 2 weeks. We accomplished that on Tuesday, True Seekers Bible Study. Now we're looking at meditations in Hebrews, and we're looking at verses 29 through 31. We have already moved all the way from ancient Abel all the way through Moses and leading in Passover, that simple act of obedience to God's command and putting blood upon the doorposts and the lintels protected the people of Israel and their firstborn from the death angel. All firstborn males of all Egyptian households were found to be dead by morning or in the middle of the night. Now, that's amazing that you could pick on simply the livestock firstborn and human firstborn. That takes a level of discernment and sophistication that most or all naturalistic explanations have a hard time explaining. The odds against something like that happening are impossible odds for it to happen just on its own or simply happen coincidentally. It is attributed to a divine agent, a being of the unseen realm that has gone through and executed judgment on all homes that did not have the blood upon the doorpost and the lintel, and within that home, the firstborn of man and animal was taken. A very sophisticated operation. And what made the difference with all that sophistication, with all of that beyond this world intervention? Obedience, responding with confidence. Responding is the key. A physical response, an actual physical behavioral response to something which was instructed, alerted to, and you respond in obedience. And as a result, all of Israel complied. And they were all saved in the Passover, in the sense of they were rescued from the death of the firstborn, this plague, this judgment that fell upon the land of Egypt. But wait, there's more. A couple days, a couple weeks later, we get to this point. Now in Hebrews 11:29, by faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land. Wow. So there had to be a spot at the Yom Suf, at the Gulf of Aqaba, that was gradually sloping, that featured a sand or a river, a underlayment that could not be deep and craggy canyons. Can you imagine taking livestock and older people and wagons down through that? It's like falling off the edge of the Grand Canyon. No, it had to be an area where it smoothly sloped. Secondly, that it had to have the feature that when the underlayment was exposed to the air, that it took the form of asphalt. That's an amazing feat, to take a mucky, muddy underlayment and turn it into something that you can take wagons and walk people and the elderly through without getting bogged down. Well, by faith, he stretched out his rod and the waters parted. But listen to this. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea. They had to be willing to move into that new zone. Can you imagine if the waters were parted and they all stood on the shore with their arms folded across their chest and they said, not going to do it, not going. So these people respond when the waters part, the wind blows all night long. When the morning light comes, they have this highway, kind of looks like a typical southern plantation road with the trees kind of all mounted up on the side, even overhanging, and then having a road right through the middle of that forestation. And we think nothing of nonchalantly driving down that road. These people had to step out and move. They had to physically walk into the middle of this sea without fear. If they were paralyzed by fear, they never would have stepped in. And Moses wasn't big enough to make them walk. What did they do? What did the people of Israel do? When they saw this happen, they stepped in. They were driven partly by the fact they had just been spared from death. This was miraculous. This was unexplainable. And they're beginning to catch on to this idea that God, who is invisible, is unexplainable, and he's awesome. And he has mastery over the physical world. As the creator, that kind of gives you the ability to do that. So by faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land. They marched right on through. They walked right on through. But when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. What happened? They went in, finally, they were emboldened. Were they drawn by faith in Yahweh? No. They look at this and say, if they could do it, we can too. And so they marched in, and that's when the Lord removed his hand, and the waters went back to their natural place. It moved from supernatural to natural really quick. And Pharaoh's army, the soldiers, the chariots, were all caught in the middle of that Yom Suf, in the middle of the Red Sea, and they were drowned. They didn't come by faith, but the people of Israel, they were moved by faith to overcome their fear and trust Yahweh, the God of Israel, and step into the middle of the sea. Do you ever feel like that? I have. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days. That was the order. March around for 7 days. Once at once, the whole army. Go around, come back to the camp. Go around, come back to the camp. So they did it on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. What happened on the 7th day? They went around, blew the trumpets, and shouted, and the walls dropped down. Wonder if there was a sonic activity. I wonder if there was a cooperative activity between God, the creator of the universe, and people who were walking and being quiet by faith. They did it by faith. They obeyed by faith. They were stepping into confidence in God. This is what he's commanded, and we have seen some very strange commands translate into some very amazing things. The army marches around. On the 7th day, they march 7 times, blow and shout, and the walls come down. Wow, that faith was powerful. But watch how faith keeps some of the wall from falling down. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. What happened? Her part was not destroyed. Her family in the wall was intact. They were all with her in her apartments, and they were not destroyed in the wall coming down. By Rahab being obedient and trusting the spies, placing her confidence in the command that came through them and the command that went from them to their commander. She had welcomed the spies. She recognized the touch of God on them. And as a result, her and her family were spared, not by her righteousness. This is the contrast. The prostitute Rahab. What did she have? She had faith. And what did she do with that faith? She placed it in God and His commands, His word, His reputation. She acted by bringing her family together and hanging a scarlet cord out the window. All she did was come into obedience. And what resulted? With this amazing destruction of the walls, something else was equally amazing. That her section wasn't destroyed, because she would have been crushed in the tumbling rock. Living between those walls, she would have been entombed, like many other people were entombed in that wall. She was not. Her and her family were spared. Why? How? How did that happen? Against all these forces of quote-unquote nature and randomness that wasn't nature and it wasn't randomness. There was something going on. Another factor was at work. And because of her faith, she acted on something with confidence that it was so, and with evidence that it was. She had heard the reputation of the people of Israel and their God. She welcomed the spies. She gathered her family. She hung the scarlet cord in the window. And as a result, miraculous intervention, her home was not destroyed. Her family was spared. All because why? She placed her confidence in Yahweh, the God of Israel. What's neat about that story is that it elongates, and we find her name mentioned. She eventually married into the tribe of Judah, and she is named in the lineage of Yeshua HaMashiach. Astounding and amazing. Why? Because she was, here's her reputation, not as a prostitute. That's the old reputation. What's her new reputation? A woman who's willing to believe God, no matter how goofy it sounds and how unusual it might be. And that is more than simple belief. She believed it so much, she placed her confidence in their word and acted accordingly in preparation for when the walls came down. Her family was spared by faith. By faith. What a great chapter, and what a great thing to come back to this. He who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. So in that regard, we can be just like the people of Israel who stepped out into the middle on dry land and walked across the Yom Suf. Or we can be like Rahab and act upon what we believe and have an amazing effect upon our family and the generations to come. What a powerful, powerful thing to place our faith in God, Yahweh, the God of Israel, the great God, the creator of all that is. Faith, that's what it's about. And in whom we place it, to what ends we place it. So with that, I'm wondering how many walls you need to walk around today, and where is the Red Sea that you need to step into, and stop being fearful and actually walk in between those massive walls of water, knowing that your God has called you in. And the one who has called you is going to take you across. So let your heart be encouraged. Let your faith be strengthened by the work of the Word, the work of the Holy Spirit. Lord bless you. Grace and peace. We'll see you tomorrow.